coming up on Lawmakers. The Senate passes the first of Governor Sonny Perdue's education bills after lengthy debate and 11 proposed amendments. Senator Bill Hamrick introduces legislation that would eliminate capital outlay from lottery funding in an effort to preserve the Hope Scholarship. And Governor Perdue talks to county commissioners about economic growth and water resource management. Those stories and more are coming up next.
Live from Atlanta, this is Lawmakers for Tuesday, February 3rd. Here are your hosts, Wandy Lawson and Gerald Bryant.
Good evening, everyone. The state Senate still in session at this hour discussing another piece of Governor Sonny Perdue's education legislation. We will continue to monitor that debate and update you as the night goes on.
Also on our broadcast tonight, the Georgia Breast Cancer Coalition recognizes legislators for their contributions, and firefighters are honored at the Capitol. But our top story tonight, Governor Perdue's education legislation.
Earlier today, the state Senate did indeed pass out part of Governor Perdue's education legislation. Senate Bill 428 is aimed at toughening school discipline, and that includes a provision that could take away a teen's driver's license.
What this bill says is, if you drop out of school, if you stop attending, if you're truant, if you don't go, or if you commit these crimes or the violations of the student codes of conduct and get suspended for those for 10 days, then you fall into a category where you're no longer allowed the privilege of driving.
Today's debate was halted during an exchange between Senator Sam Zamarripa and Floor Leader Preston Smith. Someone on the floor told Zamarripa to, quote, ask a question. That brought a quick response from Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor.
I am in the process, Senator. I think I have the floor.
I am presiding here. So minority caucus or majority caucus got a problem with that? The questions are flowing in one direction. They'll continue to flow in one direction. If the senator doesn't want to take the question, he can yield. Senator 36 will have time to present his question. It's been a very irregular morning in here. Chairman of the Education Committee cannot yield time to the deputy floor leader, but he's been allowed to.
And he ended up by saying that he did not appreciate any remarks from the back row. When debate continued, Senator Zamarripa asked several times if there were any exceptions in the bill that would allow a teen not in school to obtain a driver's license.
I want to know, is there a circumstance under which someone under the age 18 could not be attending school and still be able to get a license? Give me that example. Because if they're not in school, if they're 10 days absent for some reason that you may or may not have qualified in this document, can they get a license?
Not if they don't go to school. That's the point of the bill.
Several Democrat senators said they were concerned that the bill would discriminate against teens who dropped out of school and tried to work or support a family.
Under this bill, that young man that was working to support his family would not be able to drive in the event that he stopped school, did not pursue a GED in order to work, perhaps at a job with benefits. Is there any provision for that young man?
Well, again, Senator, I think the provision is the alternative method of obtaining the degree. It is true, however, that if you drop out of school and do not attend, then you will lose the right to drive under the age of 18.
Republicans supporting Senate Bill 428 said that the power to revoke teen driver's licenses would be a powerful tool to keep students in school and increase their earning power. Education Committee Chairman Joey Brush said allowing exemptions might have the opposite effect.
If we say it's okay if you drop out of school, if you have a job, they'll drop out of school and get a job. Or get a job and then drop out of school. There's been some discussion about if they had a child at 17. I'm telling you, do we want as a state of Georgia to say you can drop out of school and the only way you can get your driver's license, you go have a baby? They'll do that too.
Senator David Adelman tried to get the education bill sent back to committee. He insisted that the measure had potentially high costs and that under Senate rules it must have a fiscal note.
No one here can vote on this bill today because no one here has a clue what the fiscal impact is. You can't possibly have a clue. Now, this may result in 10,000 or more driver's licenses being suspended. There's a fiscal impact on the state for doing that.
Edelman's effort to have the bill recommitted failed. The Senate rejected most amendments and passed Senate Bill 428 by a vote of 41 to 15. It now goes to the House.
Governor Sonny Perdue called the Senate passage of his education bill, quote, a bold bipartisan step towards improving discipline in the classrooms across our state, unquote. Shortly after the vote, I talked with Governor Senate Floor Leader Senator Dan Lee about opposition to the teen driving provision.
The whole idea of affecting a person's driver's license based on a disciplinary problem at school is to give some weight to what we do in school. You know, the driver's license is really the only weight we can apply to some students, unfortunately, in order to get their attention. The deterrent value of that would be lost if you start applying those kinds of exceptions. And we fully recognize that there are situations outside of metro area where you don't have rapid transit that this is going to matter, but I submit to you that is our case. They are making our case. The more it matters, the more deterrent value it will have.
The argument seemed to be from Senator Joey Brush, the chairman of education, and from Senator Preston Smith, one of the governor's other floor leaders, is that by doing this you encourage students to stay in school, get more education, increase their earning potential, and you need a fairly big deterrent to do that. Well,
that's part of it, but I want to hasten to add, Gerald, that part of this bill allows that if you're suspended or expelled from school, and some teachers will tell you that it's better for the class if a disruptive child is put out of the school. Well, there's some relief in this bill. That child can go on to get a GED and would be relieved of this prohibition against having a driver's license. If they go get a GED, then they'll be eligible for a driver's license. What we don't want to do is to keep a child in the classroom where that child is disruptive to the whole. But by the same token, do we want to expel the child and abandon that child to the world? We think that this bill, with this out, that allows the child to go get a GED, to go to technical college, gives that child a way that they can recoup their driver's license, can get on with their life. A lot of information was given there at the committee meetings and in the well today that related to how much better off these children are if we can push them to a place in education that betters them, but at the same time not leave them in the classroom where it's disruptive.
A reminder, the Senate is still debating Senate Bill 429, the governor's bill that changes the way the state grades schools, going from a letter grade to a 0 to 100 scale. The bill also delays smaller class sizes for another year. That part of the bill is encountering Democratic opposition.
And House Education Chairman Bob Holmes today outlined 3 areas of discord between his committee and the State Department of Education. Representative Holmes charged that the state is underreporting the number of schools that exceed maximum class sizes.
The problem that I have is that we gave them 1 year. I told the superintendent that I realized that she succeeded a person who may have been the single worst administrator in Georgia history, bar none. Superintendent Strenko. So I'm willing to give her some time to get her arms around the department and to get us some good data, because we never got any. But when I receive this data, and you're talking about flexibility, then I have some concerns.
When the legislature agreed to end social promotion, it mandated that third graders who do not meet standards on this year's Criterion referenced competency test will not be promoted to the 4th grade. Representative Holmes said neither local systems nor the state DOE has done enough to support students who are not on grade level.
The first problem, as I see it, is with the legislation. They've made it voluntary. The unfortunate situation is that the largest number of children who probably need supportive services come from families where the parents are not active in the schools. The children who come from more affluent families who are in fact active in the PTAs, they're going to go and say, Jimmy didn't do well on this, I want you to give him supportive services. And they feel that's the end of their responsibility.
Representative Holmes has introduced House Bill 1190 to require local systems to meet certain benchmarks before they're given class size and spending flexibility.
In other news, Senator Bill Hamrick dropped legislation yesterday to revise the Hope Scholarship and added a bill today that would exclude capital outlay projects from lottery funding. Senate Bill 471, the bill dropped yesterday, is based on the findings of a bipartisan Hope Scholarship Study Commission, which was formed last year to find ways to preserve the lottery-funded scholarship. David Zelski joins us live from the Capitol with more on that story. David.
Well, thanks, Gerald. Hope revision bills based on the Commission's findings were dropped in both the Senate and the House yesterday, but there were several Commission recommendations that did not make the final draft of the bill. So Senator Hamrick added this additional bill today with one more recommendation.
There's been some discussion about some of the past expenditures from lottery funds, and in 1998 the Constitution was amended and it listed all of the things that the lottery funds could go to, and capital outlay projects was one of those. So one of our commission recommendations was to no longer fund capital outlay projects. So we have dropped legislation that would add an amendment to the Constitution to no longer do that.
Senator Hamrick, however, does stand by the rest of the Commission's recommendations in the legislation dropped yesterday, which includes eliminating payments for books and fees and certain standards to establish residency in order to receive Hope.
Those bills address the issues of books and fee payments. We believe we can save $125 million this year if we don't pay for books and fees. It raises the standard for what a B is. You know, the current standard is an 80, and we're trying to get to a 3.0, which is a higher standard, and so we're working to try to do that in the legislation. We're also working to create a standard residency requirement. Currently, there are at least 3 different versions of what a resident is, depending on where you go to college in Georgia, whether it's a private college or a university system school or a DTAE school. So we want one standard for residency.
Governor Sonny Perdue's plan to link the SAT to Hope was also a Commission recommendation that did not make the final draft of the bill, but is expected to be introduced in another piece of legislation this session. Reporting live, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
Thank you very much, David.
Well, the House today gave a nod to allowing local school boards to extend more insurance benefits to their members. Representative Bill Cummings explained that House Bill 328 does not mandate the benefits, but it does require public notice before issuing them.
It authorizes local boards of education to fund life, disability, and liability insurance, retirement and pension coverage, and Social Security coverage for members of the local boards of education. Anticipating there might be a question, I would say to you this is not a must bill, this is a may bill instead, and the House Committee on Retirement has put in a committee substitute stating that the board must announce its intention to provide such benefits at a regularly scheduled meeting at least 1 month before such benefits are granted.
The measure passed by committee substitute. The vote was 162 to 6. It now moves to the Senate.
The House Education Committee covers the governor's Bright from the Start legislation during their meeting today. House Bill 1288 would change the Office of School Readiness to Bright from the Start, Georgia's Office of Early Care and Education. The governor's legislation is aimed at improving existing programs in Georgia, including pre-K and Smart Start. House Bill 1288 was sent to subcommittee for further review. House Bill 1270 was also covered during the House Education Committee meeting. That bill deals with maximum class sizes and would strike out the current requirement to further reduce class sizes in the 4th through 12th grades. That bill was also sent to subcommittee.
Well, the Governor Sonny Perdue addressed the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia about some of their legislative concerns today. The governor delivered the keynote address at the association's annual legislative conference luncheon at the downtown Marriott Marquis. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman was there. Jesse.
In Wandy, the governor addressed several issues concerning the association, including economic growth and water management. He said the economy is moving in the right direction thanks in part to his Georgia Works bond package, and he is working with Representative Bob Hanner towards bipartisan water legislation. He also talked about transportation funding.
Hope you're pleased in a tough budget year. I was also able to maintain our LARP funding at last year's level of $38 million. That was greater than it had been in a number of years, and $100 million for GRIP funding, as well as other bonding funding for transportation projects as well.
Another issue the ACCG is very concerned with is allocation of SPLOST funds within counties. The governor instructed the county commissioners to compromise on the issue with the Georgia Municipal Association. House Majority Leader Jimmy Skipper and Senate Pro Tem Eric Johnson participated in a panel discussion after the luncheon, and they echoed that instruction. Senator Johnson also talked about how the issue relates to his legislation regarding Atlanta's sewer systems.
Normally what we say is y'all get together, bring us a solution, and since y'all are the players, that's okay. But if y'all can't get together, there's liable to be a legislatively imposed solution to it.
I have a commitment from the GMA and the House leadership that this is focused solely on Atlanta, solely for a specific problem, and solely short-term for that problem alone, and will not turn into a most either permanently for Atlanta or for other cities.
And neither GMA nor the ACCG are yet to get behind any specific legislation. Governor Perdue said he would have more specifics about his economic package later in the week. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
Thank you, Jesse.
In other news, Governor Sonny Perdue's child endangerment legislation is now in the Senate instead of the House. The bill was introduced in the House but ran into problems. The governor's Senate floor leader, Dan Lee, will have more to say on that on Thursday's edition of Lawmakers.
Well, the Service Employees International Union announced plans to draft legislation setting mandatory case limits for child welfare workers. Social workers with the Department of Family and Children's Services say the bill is essential.
Caseloads are outrageous.
Clinton County caseworker Rita Goodman expresses the frustration of many of her colleagues. With the state goal for maximum caseloads moving from 17 to 25 this year, child advocates say it's time for legislators to do more to protect children.
They are the most vulnerable, and when they find themselves within the DFAC system, they're even more vulnerable. And they can't vote, but we can. And we're here to say that whoever is not for our children, then we're not going to be for them either.
Caseloads are never going to come down to safe levels unless it's the law that they have to be.
We have needlessly lost too many children because there has been no political will, as far as I'm concerned, to really solve the problem. The point is, it takes people to do social work, not computers, not paper.
The SEIU is calling on DFACs to follow caseload recommendations from the Child Welfare League of America, which recommends a staffing ratio of 15:1 for social workers. The union has yet to identify a sponsor for its legislation.
Representative Barbara Mobley today defended herself against a published report claiming that she owes over $3,000 in state taxes. Yesterday, Representative Lynn Moore James also denied the validity of an Atlanta Journal-Constitution article that said he owed about $1,000 in back taxes. First, Representative Mobley.
I was approved to pay my debt by installment. I was not running from this debt. On this plan, I was never late. Neither did I miss any payments on my final plan. But this never made it to the media. In fact, a final installment payment was made on yesterday. On Friday, I pled with the Department of Revenue to please confirm my arrangement with them. It was not until yesterday at 3:20 p.m. that the department's installment person finally returned my call, too little too late.
I'd like for you to know that I don't owe the Internal Revenue Services, the Georgia Revenue Department, Revenue any money. They apologized to me on Friday for an error that we have been ongoing for the last couple of years. I made the people that's in position aware that this is something that's been ongoing and it's been corrected, but still they elected to publish it in the paper. But I want you to know I'm standing before you today to let you know that I believe in paying taxes. I enjoy paying taxes because when I pay taxes, it means I made a little money. But to try to keep from paying my fair share of state taxes, local taxes, or sales taxes, I don't do that. Thank you.
Beginning next week, the Georgia Department of Revenue will post on its website the names of companies and individuals who owe back taxes. The Georgia Breast Cancer Coalition recognizes legislators for their efforts to fight against breast cancer. Chrissy Thrasher joins us live with more on today's Cancer Coalition Legislative Breakfast. Chrissy.
Well, Gerald, the Georgia Breast Cancer Coalition says the support of legislators has helped increase breast cancer research by nearly 700% over the past decade. But at today's legislative breakfast, the coalition also voiced their concern over a piece of legislation that could potentially have negative effects on breast cancer prevention. The Georgia Breast Cancer Coalition holds a breakfast at the Capitol this morning. The group addresses key legislative issues at the annual event.
We are particularly concerned about reductions in general support funds to county health departments. These cuts could impair their ability to screen for breast cancer and to assist women in getting very vital treatment.
The coalition also expressed their opposition to Senate Bill 50.
This bill and several other similar bills will undermine the current insurance mandates.
These mandates require insurance companies to cover services like mammograms and pap smears.
If this bill passes, it would mean insurance carriers in Georgia will be able to convert a number of currently mandated preventive procedures to an optional extra cost basis. We know the backers of SB 50 have a strong point of view, but we consider our opposition to this bill to be equally important.
The breakfast is also put on to honor those legislators who are involved with the Breast Cancer Coalition, including Senator Renee Unterman and Representative Bobby Childers.
They have been outstanding representatives of causes dealing with cancer, and we want to recognize them for the assistance that they've given to us over the years in those areas.
So we can make a difference if we all get together and one person does matter.
But it's an exciting time, though, to be involved in cancer research and what it means to so many people. It touches so many lives.
And the coalition also thanked Governor Perdue for deciding against putting an income limit on Medicaid eligibility for women with breast or cervical cancer. Reporting live, I'm Christy Thrasher for Lawmakers.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. Now we are going to go back live to the state Senate, where they are voting now on amendments on Senate Bill 429, part of the governor's education legislation package. This one in particular, the controversial part, at least as far as the Democrats are concerned, is freezing plans for smaller class sizes that were established in earlier legislation. Republicans sponsoring the bill say that's because of the budget constrictions, that will be done a year from now. They're committing to that. Democrats saying there should be some way to go ahead and find out how to fund lower class sizes now. Let's listen in now. Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor presiding in the state Senate. Let's see where they are in the process.
The bill. Chair has done. The floor of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair has done. The main question is ordered.
They are now preparing to vote on this legislation, having completed voting on the amendments. There were several amendments to be voted on, most presented by Democrats.
Mr. President, parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that voting yes for this bill will help to dismantle and destroy the progress we've made in public education the last 3 or 4 years?
That'll be up to the judgment of each and every
member. That is Senator Steve Thompson.
The issue has been well debated today. Assembly 24th is recognized.
Is it true that the passage of this bill will once again restore a spirit of cooperation between the state and the local school systems to have better schools in the state of Georgia?
That is Senator Joey Brush. He is chairman of the Senate Education Committee and one of those presenting this legislation on behalf of the governor.
But the chair is also in favor of improving Georgia schools.
By substitute simply means that the Senate Education Committee made a substitute for the original bill.
On the passage of SB 429 by substitute as amended, the yeas are 38 and the nays are 18. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary, Chair recognizes Assembly 51st.
44, this Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday.
So, and you just heard the voice of Senator Bill Stevens, the majority leader, making the motion that the Senate adjourn until tomorrow. They have now passed both major parts of the governor's legislation, the governor's education legislation, Senate Bills 428 and 429. We'll have more on that when we're back on Thursday. And Wendy?
Well, that's right. In other news coming out of the House today, hospital administrators, child advocates, and nursing home operators were among those who told a House Appropriations Subcommittee that budget cuts, particularly in the area of Medicaid eligibility, would be far-reaching. Several said that an estimated 12,500 pregnant women would be cut off from prenatal care and that more than 14,000 children would lose their insurance benefits. Others expressed concern about the elimination of programs for adult dentistry and prosthetics.
We're talking about, with this premium proposal, increasing the premiums for a family with $30,000 in gross income, not net income, but gross income, by 300%. That's considerably more than even the private insurance industry is doing right now. This is going to cause serious difficulties for these families. A family with only $35,000 in gross income will be asked to pay $90 a month for 2 children. That's really an awful lot of money. And don't forget that the family is still having to try to buy insurance for the parents.
Have any of you been unable to get out of bed to walk to the bathroom? Been unable to sit up straight in a chair to eat, or keep your head from falling over in your plate, and so forth. One of the recommended cuts in the budget is orthotics and prosthetics that you heard a while ago. A couple of people mentioned. You know, with small items like this, it's just a little small leg brace that my friend in Millersville made for me. I have taken 17 steps using 2 of these myself.
Meanwhile, the House Judiciary Committee met today to evaluate 2 bills concerning condominiums and how they may be incorporated within a homeowners association. House Bill 208 and 210 were brought back to the committee from a special subcommittee and will allow the addition of condominiums as homeowners associations. Condominiums are not currently included under the Homeowners Association Act.
When the act was passed in 1994, I don't think the drafters realized how the trend was going to go towards having these really truly mixed-use developments with a master association and a number of sub-associations for different types of developments.
The purpose of this legislation is to amend regulations within the Homeowners Association Act to allow it to adapt to changes in Georgia housing trends. The original act was passed in 1994.
It allows for master plan communities to have condominiums within the development as a whole, so that you could have mixed-use development with condominiums, townhomes, single-family dwellings that could all come under a master association.
The legislation sets rules for allowing condos to enter the Homeowners Association Act and establishes how these new associations would function, including penalties for not paying assessments for breaking covenant rules. House Bills 208 and 210 were each given a due pass by committee substitute and moved to the House Rules Committee.
Well, firefighters filled the Capitol today for the 32nd Annual Firefighters Recognition Day. Lawmaker Samantha Cheshire has that story.
Firefighters were honored today for the safety they provide to communities throughout the state. The ceremony began with a performance by the Rome Fire Department Bagpipe Band. Governor Sonny Perdue spoke at the event where he spoke about the development of Georgia's search and rescue teams.
I'm pleased to announce today that Georgia will now have 3 heavy search and rescue teams strategically located throughout the state of Georgia. The Georgia Search and Rescue Teams are being established in the coastal, the metro, and the central Georgia regions. They will respond to weapons of mass destruction and other incidents involving collapsed structures.
These teams will have a maximum response time of 4 hours. Previously, the closest search and rescue teams were in Memphis and Miami. Senator Jeff Mullis recognized firefighters not only for fighting fire, but also for their medical response services.
Not only do we put a fire out, but we administrate life support. We are first responders to a medical care situation or to an accident scene.
A volunteer firefighter.
I can tell you, after my first training fire, I had a keen appreciation for how frightening your jobs can be.
Other activities for the day included a luncheon sponsored by the Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation and a motorcade through downtown Atlanta. Hats off to firefighters.
A reminder, lawmakers won't be on tomorrow. General Assembly's in recess. We'll see you Thursday. Good night.
Good night.